Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending March 1st, very last few days of February, moving into March, getting closer and closer and closer to the equinox, whether it is the vernal one for you or the autumnal one for you. I guess it depends on what part of the world you are currently living on right now. In my experience, coming out of winter and or summer, it's usually for me coming out of either one, I'm really excited for the equinox because that's the time, when the weather is sort of perfect. It either cools down or warms up a little bit, and so it's really exciting for me. The equinoxes way more than the solstices for me anyways. For you guys, I guess it just depends on which way your bread is buttered on these days, right? We're gonna go ahead and get to the horoscopes here. We've got some interesting stuff going on this week, not too crazy necessarily. And I do believe that we are still in a retrograde free week, so no planets retrograde. We're moving direct and forward movement for all, which is really nice. I think we could all use a little forward movement for all. Things have gotten pretty sticky the last few months for sure. It's been very difficult for a lot of people. Let's get to these horoscopes. We are going to get started as we always do with Aries. We continue to have Jupiter in Aries. We have Venus full on in Aries as well, starting off at 7 degrees, ending the week at 15 degrees, where she moves into conjunction with Jupiter. There's a couple of things that I really see coming from this. Focus is on career. Focus is also on your support system as well. And so I feel there's a couple of things here. One, in terms of your career goals, and Jupiter is all about expansion, this is a perfect time to really focus on expanding within those particular goals, specifically your career there. Venus just adds an element of creativity to this, I think, which is really awesome for Aries. Being a fire sign, I feel like a lot of times, you should say most of the Aries that I know, they really do look at things in a very black and white way, but it just makes it more fun when you can add some creativity into it. And each Aries that I've ever known has a very creative flair, in a specific direction. Not saying they only have one, but it has to do with their personalities and the creativity that comes from their personalities. And so I feel that I really have to say that in terms of success and in terms of your own career growth, who you are really is going to have a huge impact on that. And you want to make the most of your best assets, and of course leave the ones that kind of tend to hold you back at the door as much as possible. Jupiter and Venus later on in the week move into a trine with the moon, actually right at the end of the week. The moon will be in Leo at that time. The moon's focus is on the mind and how you think. So this actually is kind of helpful as these three planets sort of line up to sort of help you, remind you that manifestation is, of course, the only way that you can manifest something is to look at it in a positive way. When you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong, or you're thinking this is never going to happen, obviously your manifestation doesn't work very well, and you wind up disappointed. The moon just comes in to give you that amplification to help with that manifestation and to help you have a clear view of what you need to do in order to achieve those goals. So you using your emotions to your advantage at this point. I think that's really the big thing that comes out of that is really helpful. So whatever your big plans are, guys, it's time to focus on it. And I feel like you've been focusing on it for a while with Jupiter influencing that. Venus just comes in, and in some cases, the moon comes in and just heightens that focus and adds a couple of really awesome layers of things that maybe you've missed so far, but they're there now because it's when they're supposed to be there. So That's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on over to Taurus. Uranus is square with Mercury on Sunday. And then Mercury moves out of that, actually moves into Pisces by the end of the week. No more Uranus squared with something in Aquarius anymore. We're done with that. It has been a long year, and I'm glad to see it behind us, which is good. Focus is on that secret closet just a little bit this week. Uranus's focus is on your support system. This is actually kind of an interesting combination here, especially with Uranus not really doing a whole lot of working with other signs this week. Once we get past that square, it's like you're not hampered by any other planets because it's just the one that's influencing your sign. And while at times having a planet working with another planet can be helpful, I feel like that's just been way too much energy for you guys for like a really long time. And this sort of takes some of the heat off of that and takes some of the pressure off of it and just sort of slows things down a little bit so you can catch your breath, if that makes sense. In terms of your support system, I feel like this is often a problem. At least I've known a lot of Tauruses that have really gone through this problem, feeling like, especially if you're a Taurus that is really a very goal-oriented Taurus, you have very specific things that you want to achieve. Even if you start out with the support of somebody, by the time you get to the end of it, it feels like you don't have any support at all whatsoever. And that can be a really big deterrent in terms of achieving your goals. And it can also be a really big excuse when it's really easy to use it as an excuse, right? I feel like sometimes as human beings, we set ourselves up for failure for a reason in order to prove our fears. And while we may consciously feel like we're doing everything we can to avoid that, subconsciously, we're actually doing everything we possibly can to make that happen in a way. So you do want to pay attention to that and make sure that you're not falling into those traps, if that makes sense. Really pay attention to it. You may be sitting here listening to this going, oh my God, I don't do that. And then once you really think about it, you will see that just like everybody else, you do. We all do it to a certain extent. I know I'm guilty also. I feel like also in terms of what's going on with your support system, Uranus is really all about breaking out of the norm. So we're not looking for the typical support system that we normally reach for. Actually, we're looking to expand that. We're looking to look outside of the box with that. We're looking for a support system like nothing you've ever seen before. And that may at first not look very supportive at all, but it might also be exactly what you need to kick you into gear and to get you past those things that always come up in your head that are holding you back. Because let's face it, we all have those things, right? And in all honesty, being an earth signs tend to be very high achievers. And so if you're not feeling like you've been a high achiever lately, you're gonna need a little bit of extra help. And it's not always somebody that stands there and tells you all of these wonderful things so that you can believe in yourself again. Sometimes it's somebody who comes in with a little bit of tough love and says, hey, let's stop wallowing in it and get up and do something about it. Come on, let's go, right? And as annoying as that is, for stubborn people like myself, is exactly what is needed in order to get me to get moving when I'm in that space and I'm not taking myself out of that space. So yes, we've moved past all these hangups of things that seem to be holding us back. And yet you would think that that's like, yes, forward movement, let's go. But you also have to have an adjustment period with that. All of a sudden, just everything running smoothly, yes, you can kind of panic and go, oh my God, I'm not used to this. It's okay. Take it slow. Don't go too fast. make sure that that you have all your ducks in a row and you know what you are looking at, and you're flexible. That is the big thing. I feel like for most fixed signs, we've been learning flexibility for a long time because we have to. It's just how it is. The world changes. So the more flexible you can be with the changes, the better. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're going to move on into Gemini. We're going to kick off the week with the moon in Gemini. We still have Mars in Gemini as well throughout the rest of this week. Mars probably for another couple of 2-3 weeks or so. And then he moves on. And to be honest with you, I really feel that you guys need the break. I mean, you guys have so much energy to begin with. Just to add the addition of Mars energy really, I feel like it's burning you guys out in some ways. So make sure self-care is really, really, really important here. Beginning of the week, we've got the moon moving into Gemini, into conjunction with Mars, actually, by the time we get to Monday. And focus really is on that secret closet. So our inner trauma place. Not a good place for Mars to be, except for the fact that we all have anger, we all carry it around, and this is a really good opportunity for you to let some of that anger go, if that makes sense. With the moon moving into conjunction, we're talking about a lot of triggers here, and these triggers, of course, because of Mars's influence, are very much centered around anger triggers. So old anger that we're holding on to from the past in some way. We can say from childhood. It may very well be from childhood, but it may very well be from your early adulthood or a couple of months ago, yesterday, 20 years ago. It's old anger. It doesn't matter how long it's been there. If it's knocking to come out because you're getting triggered, or the root of that anger is getting triggered a lot, it's really a good idea to let it out and let it go. It can be difficult. A lot of times we justify hanging on to it because we were offended in some way and we deserve to be angry. And I agree, you absolutely do deserve to be angry. But when you've gone past it and it's not hurting you anymore, there's really no reason to hold on to it. It's just hurting you at that point. So we're looking at a little bit of a difficulty, especially with the moon being a heavy influence the first couple of days of the week. Also, we've got Mars in a square with the sun for most of the week. The sun's focus is on career. So we're looking at a lot of this anger actually coming up around your career, and specifically triggers from old instances of your career that are now coming up again. So as annoying as that is, I feel like there's a big, huge lesson in that. If you're feeling like somebody is taking advantage, and this is triggering another time where somebody took advantage of you, or didn't pay you what you were supposed to be paid, or something, in many cases, looking back on those past experiences will help you to make the decision to make sure that you don't suffer from this maybe as long as you did before, because it's easier for you to be able to identify that there is a problem. You've already been in this space before and you can identify exactly what it looks like. Whereas maybe the first time it took you a little longer because you wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, which is totally fine. Doesn't always work, but it's nice to offer it, nonetheless. If it becomes a pattern, you stop offering it at that point, because obviously they're not changing their behavior. They don't value you as an employee. And that's hard. It's hard to wrap your head around it, but it makes it so much easier to make the decision to move on out of there and find something that values you a little bit better. The good news is Mars trine with Mercury at the beginning of the week. It kind of moves out of that trine by the end of the week, but at the beginning of the week, Mercury's focus is on long-term goals. So it's highly possible that the reason why you're going through these issues at this particular job is because it's not conducive to your long-term career goals anyways. And actually leaving that is what you need to do in order to move into the direction of your long-term career goals. So I always say everything happens for a reason. And in terms of that being said, sometimes it seems like bad things are happening to us and we're the victim of bad things. But then once the bad thing happens and the smoke clears, you see this door that opens up that you wouldn't have seen if you hadn't have lost your job or quit your job or what have you. This door opens up that you never would have seen had this bad thing not happened. And it turns out to be the absolute best thing that could happen to you. So keep an open mind. Just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's the worst thing in the world for you either. It could be exactly what you need to clear space for something better. Make sure you think about it that way. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Cancer, we are focused on self this week as the moon comes into your sign about Wednesday, Thursday, lining up in some helpful aspects with other planets for sure, lining up with some not so helpful aspects with other planets as it usually does as well. And we have Pallas Athene also continuing to be in Cancer as well. Pallas Athene's focus on self is actually very interesting. Pallas Athene is known as the warrior goddess. So it's all about fighting for what you believe in. And when you're focused on yourself, that's exactly what you need to be fighting for is you. Now, I feel a lot of Cancers, and I'm not saying they all do. I think more well-developed Cancers, who have put the work into themselves don't do this quite as often, but a lot of Cancers do have a tendency to expect others to fight on their behalf. And while I can see where that's coming from, it doesn't always work out. When we have expectations of other people, we set ourselves up for disappointment only because, right, wrong, or indifferent, sometimes that person isn't there to support us. Sometimes that person isn't there to fight our battle for us. Sometimes they're just unavailable. So you have to be able to do that for yourself. Otherwise, no one's fighting for you. Pallas Athene's influence really is pulling you very strongly into this space where you are standing up for what you believe in and not necessarily sort of cowering into the shadows so that nobody sees you. Most Cancers are very introverted people, and most Cancers really aren't all that keen on people necessarily and having a lot of people around them also. So their support systems tend to be really small, only the ones that they can absolutely trust. I mean, and when you have a support system that's that small, unfortunately, you also wind up in the position of not having a support system fairly often also. So there's another reason why Pallas Athene is coming in to sort of give you this boost in the direction of self-support for yourself. When the moon comes into your sign Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to move into a couple of different challenges here. First of all, the moon moves into a square with Venus and Jupiter, as well as an opposition with Pluto. It's not exactly a T-square because there's no square between Jupiter and Pluto. So it's just the moon and what the moon is doing. And luckily, it's not quite as big of an aspect as it could be, still brings challenges nonetheless. We're talking specifically with Jupiter's influence on career, right on the cusp of career and your support system. Now, we're talking about self-support and we're bringing up a challenge with your support system. So this really, everything kind of sort of falls into place here with this lesson. When you can't find an advocate, you have to be your own advocate. That is just the only option that you have left outside of not having an advocate at all and just dealing with whatever you're being given. And who's going to do that? I mean, if it's not right, if it's not what you're supposed to be getting, why would you take it in the first place? Also, the moon's opposition with Pluto does create a bit of a challenge, specifically because Pluto's focus really is on finances right now. So this also could be a financial situation that you may need assistance with. And if you don't, um, if you look at it this way, I'm not good at money, or I'm not good with money. I'm good at making it and I'm good at spending it. But outside of that, I'm not really good at it. And in my personal support system, I just really didn't have a person that was good enough to help me figure that out. So I had to go outside of my support system. And by supporting myself, I wound up and putting myself in a space to support myself. I wound up finding somebody that could help me with that, a professional person that could help me with that. So that way, that is taken care of for me. And I'm not wasting time crying because I don't have somebody to show me how to do it. um Actually, I did waste years, but I got there eventually, and that's really all that matters when it comes down to it. Once the moon moves out of there, things do calm down a little bit, but Pallas Athene is still very much there, helping you to or showing you how to best fight for yourself, because ultimately every single one of us is going to find ourselves in a position where we have to rely on us and nobody else. And we have to be able to do that. Otherwise, we're just not going to be able to get through it. And that's not the answer to the problem when it comes down to it. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Leo, focus is on the mind and how you think, and the moon comes into your sign through Friday and Saturday, bringing an element of the past into that emotional past BS. That's so fun, isn't it? We all just love to deal with the emotional past BS, right? The moon's opposition right when it comes into your sign with Pluto also creates a challenge because Pluto's focus is on finances. So we're really focused on past financial issues that seem to be coming up now, which is also really very, very frustrating and annoying when you find yourself in a cycle that maybe you thought you broke and it turns out that it's coming back up again. Now, when it's a cycle that repeats itself, obviously there's something in this cycle that you haven't quite learned yet. Maybe you thought you did, but you haven't quite learned it yet. I know how annoying and frustrating that is. Trust me on this. I've been there many, many times. When I think about lessons, though, and things that we have to learn through life in order to evolve as human beings, as soul beings, as spiritual beings, whatever you want to call us, or whatever label you want to put on that. Um, I also see that a lot of these lessons, there's a lot of layers to them. So you may have learned one part of the lesson, but not the other three parts of the lesson that you didn't realize were there. And usually this cycle will repeat itself, but it repeats itself a little bit differently. So also pay attention to that as well. There might be parts of the cycle that really have been omitted. You're just not seeing it because you're focused on the fact that it's the same cycle all over again. Luckily, the moon's trine with Neptune is very helpful. Neptune is focused on career. So if you're having financial problems, making some money is definitely a good way to fix that problem. Maybe even making a little bit more money. Use your intuition to see if you can find some new clients in another place, or maybe get some extra hours at work, some overtime to kind of help with those bills. Any little bit helps, as long as you're working toward that goal, putting a little bit into it at a time. Eventually you will get there. When we get to that instant gratification place, that's when things get really screwed up, and then we wind up not doing anything. As we move on into Saturday, the moon's square with Uranus is a little bit challenging, especially when it feels like you just don't have the support that you would like to have. Uranus is very much focused on that support system there. And because it's Uranus, I really feel that this is not that you don't have the support, it's that you don't have the support that you think you should have the support. So the specific people that should be there to support you right now aren't there. Doesn't mean that you don't have other people there to support you. If you're so focused on what you want to see and not the bigger picture, you're going to be disappointed. And that really is the lesson. Also, the moon's trine with Venus and Jupiter is very helpful. Venus and Jupiter being on the cusp of focus on your career as well as focus on your support system. So it's basically telling you to get a little creative in terms of your support system. Get a little creative at how you look at that. Get a little creative on the types of people that should be there. And I don't feel that we necessarily travel with the same people throughout our whole entire lives anyways. We are always bringing in new people and seeing people move out of there. And while that is this very sad reality, the same people can't help us develop over the course of our entire lives. We have to meet new people in order to get the support that we really need, and not necessarily a support that is enabling or a support that is not quite there because they're not equipped to give us the support that we need. And we can't hold it against them because they're not. It is what it is, right? So if you don't see the support that you need, it's time to go out and get it. It's time to build that support system. And especially if you're looking for support in career and financial goals, you shouldn't be looking to friendships for that at all. You should be looking to professionals. They are a part of your support system as well in many ways. So if you look at it like that, it changes the whole entire feeling of it. So that is what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Virgo, focus is on the home this week, and it feels like that actually could be a really big handful for you guys, if that makes sense. This time of year, especially, we're getting towards that spring cleaning. Virgos are very fastidious about liking things organized and everything has a place and the cleaning. And I feel that this is playing out for you guys always just the right time of year for you guys as you're getting together and you're planning and you're looking through closets and you're going, that closet needs to be reorganized. And that one, we need to take everything out and throw it away and put new stuff in. And there's just all of these plans, I feel, that need to happen for this quote unquote spring cleaning. And this isn't just something that I feel you guys do it because everybody else does it. You feel it deep inside yourself. It's like a buzz. Oh, I need to reorganize the whole house because it's spring and it's time to start over. And that's totally great. I think that that's awesome. I need a Virgo to come over and do that to my house. Actually, I have one who's been doing a very good job as of late. I feel this is a good thing. I also feel it's not a good thing if you are cleaning to take your mind off of something that your mind should be on, if that makes sense. A lot of times, busy people have the tendency to be busy so that they don't have to focus on the nagging thing that's in their brains. Whatever that nagging thing is for you, we all have it. We all have a nagging thing in there somewhere. And bottom line is that if you're using that energy to ignore something that you need to get done, that's not necessarily good. Although it's good that you got the kitchen clean, or it's good that you got that closet organized. Make sure some of that energy goes into taking care of that nagging thing. And the reason why is, one, it's going to nag at you until you do something about it. And actually, that's zapping energy out of you that you could be using on something else. Two, the nagging thing isn't going to go away and it's just going to get bigger, which means, unfortunately, that it becomes something that's overwhelming and really hard for you to carry around. And of course, you want to avoid that as much as possible. So I'm not saying you guys are being irresponsible and not taking care of your responsibilities. We all hit that stage where there's a nagging thing that we need to take care of, and we get scared and we don't do it and we focus our energy on something else. I tell you that the time that I clean the best is when I'm avoiding doing something else, honestly, because I'm not very good at cleaning. I don't like it and I'd rather not. And the only time I do it is when I absolutely have to. But when I'm really gung ho about it, it's because I'm avoiding something else. I don't feel that this is that way for you guys, but I do see that as being an element that is coming in for some of you guys. So if that is the case for you, enjoy your organization and cleaning by doing it after you get that big nagging thing done. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Libra, focus is on those you love, but Ceres in her retrograde fashion, of course, is focused on the home. And in retrograde, Ceres is all about love and nurturing, very motherly influence. In retrograde, it sort of feels like that nurturing has been just taken right out of there, completely disappeared, and focused on the home. This means that it's starting to feel like your home isn't that comfortable place that it used to be, the safe place that it used to be, the place that you would go to relax. With that element taken out of it, it just feels like another place that is stressing you out right now. Now, I know a Libra going through something very similar right now. We're both going through it because we live in the same house. So we're both going through it. And it's tough to feel like that because all of a sudden goes from being the most comfortable and the most safe place to a reminder of something that needs to be done constantly, kind of a thing. And in many cases where he's in this situation because he just doesn't have time to be home, and when he is home he's just kind of sort of there, and it's getting to the point where things are just not put away and they're getting unorganized, and now it's not a comfortable place at all. Bottom line is if you feel this change take place because you've had so many other things going on, because your focus has been on so many other things, because you've got other responsibilities that are nagging you, take the time to make little adjustments as much as possible. If you feel that you are not in that safe, comfortable place anymore, take the time to make those little adjustments. If you can't tackle the whole big job of organizing all the stuff, organize some of the stuff. Put some of it away. Put something up that makes things a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more enjoyable. It doesn't always take having to change the whole entire room. Sometimes it's just little adjustments that just promote relaxation while you're home and sort of create that vibe again that is missing for whatever reason. The other thing that I feel that this may be playing out is changes in the home. And when you go through changes in the home, you also go through adjustments to those changes. And while Libras are cardinal signs and changes is not necessarily difficult for them, most Libras ride through changes pretty well, I would say. A lot of times we don't realize that the amount of impact that even subtle and small changes really make on our overall feeling, our overall mental health or emotional health, if that makes sense. So if there are changes that have been taking place in the home that just feel like it's changed it for not a good way, see what you can do to counteract that change. Bring something into the house that does feel that does bring that feeling back a little bit, that sort of balanced feeling back a little bit, or change something around inside the house that creates that space again. What you don't want to do is sit around and go, well, it used to be like this and now it's not anymore. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's always something that you can do. You may not be able to get back what you had, but you can at least change it to something that feels better, or change it to something that centers you more, or something along those lines. Me personally, I've noticed a lot lately that I tend to have a lot less focus in a cluttered room than I do in a room where everything is put away. And so a lot of that change for me would be um the fact that when you're really busy, you're not necessarily putting things away where they're supposed to. They're coming in, they're being dumped, they're going back out, they're all that stuff. And so things just get unorganized. And rather than the peaceful, I'm home, I get this, oh, I'm here. There's that mess that I need to clean up, kind of a thing. And so it just, if I don't clean up that mess, I don't feel that I can relax the way that I need to. So this week, there's really a lot of that going on for you guys. It's not just necessarily in your home space, it's in here also. When you've got a lot going on and this is unorganized and cluttered, it's time for some meditation to release all that so that you can make a decision with a clear picture, because you can't make a decision with all that clutter there. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Scorpio, focus continues to be on your day-to-day schedule this week. And I kind of feel a couple of things actually coming from that. One is changes to your schedule, which for a fixed sign is not easy to do. Or deal with, I should say. Fixed signs really like, I have a schedule. This is my schedule for the week. Okay, I'm sticking to my schedule for the week because I'm looking at it now on Sunday and I already have gotten ready for my schedule to be this week. No, I don't want you to change my schedule because I liked the way that it was, kind of a thing. Fixed signs don't like change. They are not necessarily very good at being flexible either. I'm a fixed sign myself, and I feel I've been learning that lesson the hard way for years now. It hasn't been easy. And I don't think I've really fully learned it either. I think I'm better, but I don't think I've fully learned it either. So that's one thing that I see coming up for you guys. But the other thing that I see coming up is when those changes happen and it opens up some time for you. And it's like, wait a minute, all of a sudden I got free time. What do I do with it? Right. And it's really exciting when that happens because, you had planned on doing something and then now you're not. And then while that could be disappointing, it also gives you space and time to do pretty much whatever you want. I'm going to say choose wisely though on that, because I feel that there's probably a lot of ideas that you guys have, and but you just don't have the time to get them done. When you all of a sudden do have time, you want to make sure that you're using that time towards that thing you wanted to do for a while, if you can. Or you may choose to waste the time sitting in front of the television, or any of the million ways that we waste time. And there's a million time wasters on the planet these days. Bottom line is, you may need that time to rest, and that's okay. If that's what you're doing, more power to you. If you are standing there like myself going, oh my gosh, I have a whole day and there's all these things I could do with it, and then spend the whole day in front of the TV and wind up disappointed at the end of the day, you did it wrong. So I will just leave you with that extra time. Always good. It's up to you how you want to use it. But if you have plans and you go, this is what I want to do if I had the time, and you're not using your extra time towards getting to that, that's not good. You're never going to get there. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Sagittarius, focus continues to be on relationships this week, although we are sort of shifting as we get towards the end of the week into this sort of, we don't really have a focus place, which is kind of cool because then it's like a wild card. You get to sort of choose what you want to focus on. But I also feel that focus on relationships is really important, especially because at this time of year right now, and in terms of when the sign of Sagittarius is focused on relationships, It's very small. And so we've only really focused on it for the last couple of weeks or so. But I feel that in many cases, Sagittarius needs a little bit more time to focus on relationships. Not because you guys are bad at relationships. I'm not saying that at all. But Sagittarians have a tendency to be a little different than other people. Not bad, okay? I'm not saying bad. Just a little different. Sagittarians see the world in a completely different way. They see relationships in a completely different way. And that's fine. That's totally okay, as long as you're in a relationship that sees things in the same way as you, which most of the time doesn't happen. When you're in a relationship that does not see things in the same way as you do, that can create a complication, especially when neither side wants to budge. When it comes to relationships, compromise is the word of the day. Without compromise, you don't have a relationship, period. You need to compromise in order to have a healthy relationship, and there needs to be compromise on both sides. So I feel like this week for you Sagittarians is a really good opportunity for you to take a look at your responsibility in your relationships. We are always focused on everybody else's responsibility towards the relationship. This is a chance for you to take yourself out of yourself and focus on your responsibility to your relationships, regardless of what they do. Here's the thing. A million readings I've done, a million times I've talked about this particular situation in terms of relationships. And all the million clients that I have seen, every single one of them has come up to me and said, my problem with him, her is he doesn't do this. And I ask, okay, is there something that they would say their problem with you is that you don't do? Absolutely not. I do everything for them, right? If I were to talk to the significant other, that's not true. You need to look at this honestly. You need to look at your responsibility in the relationship, not just to keep it a good and healthy relationship for them, for you, but also for them as well. You want to really, I mean, we all do things to our partners that are not necessary. Our partners, especially our love partners, they see the absolute worst of you and they still love you anyways. That's a really big deal. And you see the absolute worst of them and you still love them anyways. That's also a really big deal, but you can't throw it back in their face either. Not saying that you guys are doing that. Bottom line here is, when it comes to healthy relationships, you have to step out of what they're doing and look at what you're doing. If you're not willing to fix their problem with you, why should they be willing to fix your problem with them? And that's really what it comes down to. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Capricorn, Pluto, 29 degrees in Capricorn, 29 degrees, one more degree, and technically he's in Aquarius, which he will be for a few weeks, months or so, and then he's going to go retrograde and come right back. But it does feel nice to get rid of him, even if it's just for a little bit. Although really you're not getting rid of him, being so close to the cusp and not leaving that cusp, you'll feel the effects of Pluto anyways. But it still feels nice that he's moving on at some point, right? You got to look at on the bright side as much as you can. Focus is on finances, and Pluto's opposition with the moon midweek when it moves into Cancer does create a little bit of a challenge, specifically when we're looking at past financial cycles, past negative financial cycles, or feeling the effects of being in a cycle that you've been in before that you were hoping to never be in again, especially since you're a Capricorn and you shouldn't have any financial problems. You should just be great at making money and having lots of it, right? Right? At least that's my view of what Capricorns are all about. It's actually not true that they always have lots of money. I'm sure I hear a bunch of Capricorns going, yeah, I wish I had lots of money. That would be awesome. Yeah, me too. I wish I had lots of money too. Bottom line though is that a lot of times difficulties, past challenges come up. And I think that a lot of times Capricorns, you guys work so dang hard to make sure that you don't wind up in that situation again. So if it comes up, it's a very scary thing. You've done everything you could, and yet here it is again. Um, at the same time, though, it's not the exact same situation. And you need to, it's really important that you make sure that you're not making it the exact same situation that it was last time. The more you do that, the more overwhelming and scary it really is going to feel. The other thing that I feel is really coming out of this opposition with the moon is this is a security thing. So there's a lot of fear around this, and it sort of proves the fact, to me anyways, that Capricorn, for money for Capricorns, is security. That's what it's all about. It's making sure that you can take care of what you need to take care of, and that you have a little bit left over just in case something else comes up that needs to be taken care of too. It's the most responsible way to do it, of course, but you can work and work and work your whole entire life and then wind up all of a sudden laid off when you never thought that was possible. So in a situation like that, the first thing that you want to do is eliminate as many fears as you possibly can. Those fears are not going to help you. They're going to help you make bad decisions. They're going to help you make things bigger than they really are. They're going to help you do all kinds of things that aren't good for you and aren't going to help you improve the situation, bottom line. So you never want to go from a place of fear. Outside of that moon being there and that opposition being there, Pluto is your source of power. Pluto is all about change and transformation. The financial house is also your inner growth house when you think about it. So two things are happening. One, this is a lesson. You got to learn from it. Remember not to repeat past mistakes. That's one of the biggest parts of the lesson. And two, part of the lesson also is, are you powerful because of who you are, or are you powerful because how much money you have? If the answer is you're powerful because of how much money you have, you need to readdress that really quick, because we cannot base our worth on money. No matter how good you are at making it, you cannot base your worth on money. Once you start to do that, you start to diminish your worth, and then you start to have even bigger problems. So make sure your source of power is you, the one who makes the money, not the amount of money you have or the amount of money you make. Put it all into the right perspective. And that's what I have for you guys this week. Moving on to Aquarius. Moving on out of there is Mercury this week, which means no more square with Uranus, which means it has really felt like everything that I have done as an Aquarius in the past year and a half has been through quicksand the entire time, because of these planets moving into this square with Uranus, our ruling planet to boot. It has been very difficult. I must say, living through it myself, it has been very difficult, and I am happy to see it gone. For good gone, as in bye-bye now, as in don't let the door hit you when you're on your way out, right? That is really nice. And Mercury is actually moving out of Aquarius this week completely. Saturn is 29 degrees in Aquarius at the end of the week, which means in the next week or so, he is moving on to Pisces as well. Sayonara, bye-bye. It has been fun. March 2020 is when Saturn moved in and has been pelting, literally pelting Aquarius with responsibility and tradition, which we are not about at all. We are like, fly by the seat of our pants, responsible for myself only, maybe. And no, I don't like structure. No, I don't like rules. So that's also been a bit of a challenge, although I will say personally, a bit of a growth experience as well, because I've spent a lot of time looking in that mirror about what I am responsible for and what I may be dropping the ball on in terms of those responsibilities. So it's been fun. I didn't say it was fun, but it was beneficial. I will say that. With that being said, outside of the moon's movement this week, these two planets don't interact with anybody, which is kind of nice, actually, when you think about it. And I'm looking here, moving into when that's going to happen. And the truth is, oh, wait, I missed it. That's why. At the beginning of the week, the moon moves into a trine with Saturn as well as Neptune, both planets of which are in conjunction with each other. So they're really working hard together. It's like we're really communicating that need to be responsible and a little less rebellious. So hard to swallow that, it really is. And of course with the moon, and the moon is like emotions, like what? We have to be responsible for our emotional health, specifically because these emotions are coming from our inner trauma space. And that is part of our responsibility. It's part of our mental health responsibility. It's part of our emotional health responsibility. And Mercury is very much involved in talking about it. It's about getting it out so that it's not eating you up inside. So I feel like this is about Monday, Tuesday-ish route when this is going to happen. And I feel like how that's going to really play out for you guys is we're ending that square with Mercury, and Uranus is still there on Sunday, and then it goes away. And so we're right after that. As much as it feels awesome to be completely and totally free of that thing that's been holding us back, it's like we've had a ball and chain and somebody took it off. Well, now we have to learn to walk without a ball and chain again. And that's a lot, not as easy as you think it would be, I guess, for most people. You think you would just run off running, but if you've been walking around with a ball and chain for a while, you need to actually do something about your leg that doesn't seem to want to move because it's so used to having that ball of chain on there. Baby, it does take baby steps. And that ball and chain is a good representative of your emotional health. If you've got something that happened in the past that you're still harping on, it's time to get it out, because you're just going to keep getting in your own way if you don't get it out. So outside of that day, things are pretty smooth sailing. We're focused on long-term goals. We're ready to put these long-term goals in motion. We've got that ball and chain is gone. Now we're learning to walk again. We are on the right track, and that's all that matters. Make sure you stay on that track and don't get diverted off for some, that whole Aquarian, ooh, squirrel, happens every time. And that's what I have for you guys this week. And finally, we're moving on to Pisces. Focus is on career this week. The sun continues to be in Pisces this week. Neptune, of course, continues to be in Pisces as well. Sun's not moving quite into conjunction with Neptune yet. Probably next week, maybe the week after or so. That will happen. Instead, we do have a sextile between Neptune and Pluto. And that's really the big thing that's taking place with any planets interacting with other planets outside of Pisces. So it's actually a really good week when you think about it. Neptune sextile with Pluto. Pluto's focus is on finances. Neptune's focus is on career. We're actually bringing those two things together, which is a big deal. Everybody needs a job. Everybody has to work. It's just kind of one of those things that we have to do. Finding the job that's going to pay you the money you need, that's always the challenge for everybody. And so this just sort of puts a little bit more energy towards that, if that makes sense. It also puts a little bit of energy towards raises, promotions, and as well as different things like that. And with Neptune, it's all about using your intuition to guide you in that direction. Um, and a lot of times people don't want to use their intuition. They feel like if they don't plan the whole thing, it's not going to work right. But sometimes if you plan the whole thing, it doesn't work right either. You have to allow room for your intuition to guide you. You can still make the decision whether you want to pursue that or not, but it does give you some options that maybe you weren't thinking about before. So it is very helpful. And the sun's house being where you shine, it literally means that this week you shine in your career, and you will shine through in what you do in ways where other people will see it, and in ways that may be beneficial for you in the long run in terms of moving up in your career. So it's a really good week for you guys, actually, especially you career goal oriented Pisces this week. So that's what I have for you guys. And that's what I have for everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Check out theheavymetalpsychic.com. A lot of stuff going on there, lots more stuff coming up. Getting classes together here pretty soon. Got a membership going, 25% discount on everything if you become a VIP member. And there's also a lot of other perks too. That is heavymetalpsychic.com in case you missed it the first time. Again, I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you for watching. And you guys make it a great week. I will see you next week.